And we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to the newest episode of the Wheelie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Atoll, and I'm joined again by Electrek, Seth Weintraub. How's it going, Seth?
I'm good.
Awesome. And we have got a pile of diverse e-bike and light micromobility stories to cover this week. Everything from new e-bike launches from familiar companies like Rad Power Bikes and Velotric to less familiar companies in the e-bike space like the automotive company Ford. We're going to be looking at the biggest Bosch electric bike in the world, new launches by Lime, an overview of what it's like to get around Paris at the Olympics without a car from our own Seth here. And then we'll finish it off with the smallest, most affordable electric golf cart in the world. So where are we going to start here this week, Seth?
All right. Rad Power Bikes launches its first belt drive low-cost e-bike, the RadKick.
This is the bike I've been waiting for like 2 years since they canceled the Rad mission. And back when they sort of sunsetted the Rad mission, their former sort of minimalist e-bike, I was sure something would be coming, and it was like crickets for years. And finally, we have it. This is like the spiritual successor to the Rad mission. It's called the RadKick, and it's a lot nicer. It's got that integrated yet still removable battery. They upgraded to hydraulic brakes. It's got a torque sensor for very nice pedal assist. But probably the coolest thing is that it comes in two different drive modes, either a 7-speed, which has your normal chain transmission, or a single-speed belt drive. I'm not sure which belt drive it is. They refer to it as a carbon fiber reinforced belt, but I'm not sure it's actually Gates. I feel like they would have said if it was Gates brand, so it's probably some other belt maker. But if you've been following e-bikes over the last few years, you've probably seen more companies are moving towards, or at least offering in addition, belt drive options because of their advantages over chains. That they're quieter, less maintenance, they don't rust, they don't need to be tuned, they don't wear out as quickly as chains. Lots of advantages. Of course, the downside is unless you've got an internally geared hub, you're looking at a single speed, which is what the belt drive version of the RadKick is here. But because they offer the 7-speed version with the chain, you do have the ability to shift gears if you're in a hilly area or you want that more traditional, bike transmission feel. I'm kind of a single speed guy myself. I live in a flat city, so I've never really, needed that many gears. I find that I just leave my bike in top gear anyways, because with an e-bike, you spend so little time moving slowly that shifting is kind of like a forgotten aspect in a flat city. So I would probably personally go for the belt drive here, but it's cool to see both options. Now, the downside of the RadKick, I would say, is that to get the price as low as they did, which is either $1,200 or $1,400 for the 7-speed and belt drive, respectively, to get the price that low, they cut back a few things. The first is the motor power, so dropped to 500 watts, whereas most of Rad's bikes are at 750. And the second is the battery is smaller. It's actually a 36 volt system with 10 amp hours. So that's 360 watt hours. Pretty small by comparison to most e-bike batteries these days. We're usually looking at 48 volt systems and generally at around 14 to 17 amp hours. So this is a little over half of what, the average battery size is these days. So, you're going to have a lower range. They say up to 35 miles. In reality, you're going to get less than that unless you're sticking to really low pedal assist. But on the upside, because, it's kind of a roller coaster, lots of ups and downs. On the upside, it is Rad's new Safe Shield battery, which means that they've got their new podding tech in there. So it's both UL listed and it's podded to make it basically fireproof, which is, a really cool new technology that we kind of predict is going to expand through the industry now that Rad has adopted it. So in my opinion, really, really cool to see this bike launch, because I think it opens the door for Rad to sort of return to what it was once known as the, affordable e-bike company. They've gone sort of upmarket the last few years with some of their plus models. We even started seeing bike launches in the 2000s, up to $2,500, which feels kind of expensive for what we've always known Rad to be. So I'm really excited to see this return to entry-level pricing, even if the bike itself is, a little bit lower performance, that sort of thing. It's obviously designed for for a different type of customer that's okay with, a little bit slower, 20 miles an hour, a little bit lower power. What do you think of the RadKick, Seth?
I love it. I love the idea that they're not just. I mean, the Rad mission was kind of a um, bare bones $1,000 bike, and this doesn't have the biggest battery, doesn't have the strongest motor, but it's built for biking. Um, and with the two options of a belt drive or a multi-speed chain, you get both ends of the spectrum there. It's going to be a tough choice for me. I know the Rad Mission was a single speed chain, which is kind of the worst of both worlds. But this is kind of hits all the sweet spots if you're looking to actually pedal an e-bike, which not everybody is. Um, I of course would like to see a 28 mile per hour top speed, especially on the chain version of this. But overall, it looks pretty solid all around. Like it's going to be plenty of power to get you up small hills or significant hills even. And even though the battery is not huge, it's still enough for a low power motor to get people where they're going. Um, I do, as you said, I do wonder who's making the belt drive for this, and if it's not Gates, then why didn't they? Why not say who it is? Maybe Rad's making their own belts, or they more likely they found a Chinese company that's making belts. So that's where that goes. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like a great bike, and it's like one of those things that brings back to its like roots of kind of being the bellwether of e-bikes. And of course, we've seen belt drives from I think Ride One Up or some other brands like that. So wait, what does this come in at again?
It's $1,200
Price-wise?
for the 7-speed or $1,400 for the belt drive.
Right. Pretty solid pricing there, I would say. And of course, you mentioned the battery being not just waterproof but potted, so you don't have to worry about fire issues there.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
great all around. I love what they're doing here. When are we going to see these on the streets?
They say that shipping is supposed to begin in September. It didn't seem like they had any early units even for reviews, so I think they really want to get this launched, still in the summer, and then they'll probably have these bikes landing in the US next month.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense. I guess if you're going to do a fall launch, you don't have to really ramp up to full production until spring because half of the country is not buying bikes in the wintertime. So uh,
Yeah.
makes sense on
I
a couple
am
levels.
Yeah, I am curious where this belt is from. The fact that it's $200 more to upgrade to the belt version, and that's the only change, makes me think it's got to be a pretty good belt. Those are kind of like Gates prices to have a
Right.
significant jump like that just to swap the chain out. I wonder if it is Gates and Rad just doesn't want to like put other brand names in front of their own. Not that it's not good to have Gates. They're like the name in belt drives, but Rad really doesn't like to have other brands out there. They want to be like the name on the bike kind of thing. So they might just not be advertising where the supplier is.
Yeah, and looking at it, it looks kind of like a Gates belt drive.
Yeah,
If
I don't
those,
see
those who are watching.
yeah, I don't see the center drive, but I think they also have like the full width belts like that as well. But I don't know. At some point, we or someone will get the first one, and we'll see what it says on the belt.
Yep. Yeah, great packaging all around. Kind of going back to what Rad makes Rad, and I'm really glad they didn't try to sell this for $2,500 or whatever. So good for them for getting back into their sweet spot.
Yeah, I wonder if Mike was like, guys, we gotta get back to this. Like this is what I built.
Yeah, I hope so because that's what needed to happen. All right, another company that makes e-bikes now, I guess, is Ford. Ford unveils a new Mustang and Bronco electric bikes along with N plus.
Yeah, we're kind of scratching our heads here because this came out of left field, you know. It's not that car companies haven't tried to make e-bikes before. It's just that we've seen them like flub it so many times that we're kind of surprised that Ford is even trying with this. It seems more like the marketing department was like, "Hey, e-bikes seem big. We've got some Bronco stickers. We've got some Mustang stickers." So
Right.
what they did here was they partnered up with a company called N Plus. You know, Ford didn't go out and like design their own e-bike or produce their own e-bike. Most of these automotive company e-bikes are collaborations or partnerships or just licensing deals. And it seems like this one is largely a licensing deal where N Plus actually builds the bikes. It's unclear, you know, how much of the design was done by N or how much of the design was done by Ford. I haven't seen either of these models before, so it doesn't look like they just literally slapped a sticker on an existing bike. You know, this might have been designed with the intent of being a Bronco and a Mustang e-bike, but certainly Ford is not making these. You know, they're made by this e-bike company called N Plus, which also makes Mercedes bikes. You know, they've got a history of licensing deals. It is kind of neat to see a few customization things for the individual models. Like for example, the Mustang bike, the lights on the tail are three vertical bars, like you know the stereotypical Mustang car taillights. So that was kind of neat. Um, Oh, do we not have a picture of the tail light? Oh, it's a
I was
bummer.
looking
So
for one.
yeah,
I
it's
didn't.
yeah, the Bronco one, it's the same as the Bronco's light basically, with the exception of like three vertical bars. Though the Bronco has a like dirt bike style seat, which I guess gives it a little more of that like, you know, all-terrain
Off
SUV
road.
kind of
Yeah.
feel to it, as opposed to the Mustang, which is the pony car bike and has a normal sort of bicycle seat. But the bikes do look pretty nice. You know, they got nice hydraulic disc brakes, nice transmissions, this color LCD display that's designed into the handlebars, full suspension. You know, they look like nice bikes, but they're also really expensive for what you're getting. You know, we're talking $4,000 for the, I think it's the Mustang and 4,500 for the Bronco, or vice versa. You know, they're both quite expensive, and that's only for the base color. If you want any of the other colors, it's like an extra $390. So, you know, expensive e-bikes. Now, N Plus is known for making expensive e-bikes. You know, like I said, they did the Mercedes bikes. So these are not your you know, direct to consumer, cheap $1,500 bike in a box kind of bikes. You're getting better components here, but still, you know, this is a licensing deal, and you're paying for that licensing. So the proof will kind of be in the pudding, how well these bikes ride, that sort of thing. But in my initial opinion, without having tested the bikes, it just seems kind of expensive for what you're getting. I don't know. Am I judging too soon, Seth?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you know, it's we could have done a clickbaity title like, "Hey, there's an electric Bronco from Ford, but you're gonna really hate this." You know, that kind of thing. Um,
That's just cruel.
so yeah, it's cruel. But you know, these bikes, you know, just looking at them, rear hub motor on something like this, that's $4,000. Don't don't like the sound of that. Um, like I don't think this is gonna be Stromer type territory.
Yeah.
Um, you know, like clearly Ford just wanted to throw their sticker collection on a few e-bikes. And I get, are they distributing through Ford dealers or what is the distribution method?
I don't think so. I didn't see any information about that. It would make sense, but that seems too logical. So
Right.
I think it's probably going to be a an online order thing, but it doesn't seem like they have any information yet about actual distribution.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, initially I would say, you know, this probably isn't the bike you want unless you're an insanely big Mustang or Bronco fan. But you know, I imagine these bikes are probably like, you know, $2,200 bikes repackaged with a couple stickers and a $4,000 price tag. Um, I guess it's good for getting the word out about e-bikes, and it's a good sign of the times that Ford is even interesting in doing a project like this. But just looking at the bikes themselves, they kind of look a little bit chunky. Um, not necessarily something I would want to pick up.
Yeah, they got some
So
chunk to them.
yeah. But again, good that folks are trying to make more on ramps for e-bikes. Let's move on. Velotric launches new lower cost folding e-bike and upgrades its most popular models.
Yeah, Velotric kind of quietly had a bunch of updates. This is a company we've watched grow over the last year and a half. Their early models were all right, but the last year or so, they've had some real investment in their designs, and they've come up with some really nice bikes. So their newest launch is a light version of their Fold e-bike, which, as the name implies, is a folding e-bike. It's kind of their, like, for lack of a better comparison, Electric XP 3.0 competitor. And then the light version shaves off a bit of the price by reducing the specs slightly. So I think it gets the price down to about $1,100, but you reduce the battery capacity a bit. The motor drops from 750 to 500 watts, but you still get a really nice e-bike. Oh, the one other thing it's missing is the Apple Find My integration, which is really nice to see in their like main lineup, not the light models. So it is kind of a bummer to lose that Apple Find My, but $1,100 for a really nicely designed folding bike, still a pretty good deal. But the other thing that they've done over the last month or so is each of their original sort of Model 1 versions, the Nomad, the Discover, another one that the the T1 used to be the Thunder one. I guess there was some copyright issue there. All of those have been updated with a plus version. So they got a few nicer enhancements. I think they all now have the IPX7 rated batteries, which are essentially submersible. So you never have to worry about getting caught in the rain. You could basically pressure wash them. I mean, you could put them in your washing machine if you wanted to clean them really well and ruin your washing machine. That's how waterproof these things are.
I
Um,
don't know if that would be good for the clunking around. We don't recommend that you put your batteries in the washing machine. FYI.
right. But the reason I bring that up is because one of the ways they demonstrated their waterproof effect was by putting one in a washing machine.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I think they did it without the spin cycle, so it was like the gentle wash.
Gotcha.
But like it went through a 30-minute wash cycle, and then they put it back in the bike and worked. So don't use the spin cycle is the takeaway. Um, but yeah, so the bikes, I mean, they've all got the UL listed batteries. They've got the Apple Find My. Velotric also often uses really cool colors, which is kind of like a little ancillary thing. But I really appreciate because so many e-bike companies basically give you options of white or black. So it's just nice to see them give you more customization options, and they've got a really wide range of accessories. So to me, it seems like they're kind of looking at like Rad Power Bikes playbook from 3 or 4 years ago and saying, let's try and go that route. Like, give people a lot of options, give people a lot of accessories, and build some like quality yet affordable bikes. So it's really cool to see them expanding that way, and quite quickly too, with a lot of progress made in just the last like 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, I mean, what I kind of enjoy about this is that they are making Class 3 bikes with speeds up to 28 miles per hour here. We can contrast that with, Rad's new bike, for instance, that tops out at 20 miles per hour. Um, as you say, the bike ships with Class 2, which means the throttle goes up to 20 miles per hour. But unlocking it seems trivial, or at least well explained. So that'll be something that folks can do. There's
Yeah.
also there's something to be said for folding bikes. They're not just easier to store and move around, but they're also like often easier to ship because they can ship in a much smaller box, more friendly for the environment, all that stuff. And the portability is it's it's happen it's the bikes are being made in the old folder bikes were kind of not as stiff, and it feels like the new folder bikes are really doing a good job there. So um, I really like the folding bikes. The Luna Eclipse fat tire folder that I is kind of one of my main bikes. So I like to see that, and then as you mentioned, the kind of following in Rad's footsteps here is also kind of a good move, except with the faster top speed of 20 miles per hour. So all in all, pretty solid, especially at the prices that they're advertising. $1,300 is pretty good, and then I guess the Nomad One Plus is 1,500. So pretty solid.
Yeah, the other thing, like you're mentioning that you can unlock the speed to go faster. One kind of neat thing about Velotric bikes is you can also change the speed to go slower, which might sound like something that most people wouldn't want to do. But if you're considering like, you're giving it to your teenager or like an older person is using it and you just don't want the ability to go faster or like you want to twist the throttle and have it only go up to like 12 or 15, you can set it that way. And not a lot of e-bikes are able to limit the speed lower. So it's kind of a neat feature for certain use cases.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that would be fantastic, especially for younger teenagers who maybe don't want going 20 miles per hour. I can I can already see where that would be a good idea. All right, let's move on. This is the biggest Bosch electric bike in the world, literally.
Yeah, so this is a company called Dirty Sixer. They got their name because they built e-bikes using 36er wheels. So these are huge. If you're watching the podcast here with us, you're looking at a picture of it compared to their smaller big bike, which uses 32-inch wheels, which themselves are massive. Further down, there's a comparison to a 26-inch wheel bike. But these are basically designed for, like extra tall riders. There's a lot of NBA players that famously use Dirty Sixer bikes because they're kind of like the only bikes that fit them. And so it's cool to see the company switching to Bosch motors because they're one of the highest end e-bike drive makers in the industry. And so the company just rolled out these Bosch powered e-bikes in both their 36 and 32-inch wheel size. The 36 inch wheels, I think those bikes fit riders up to it's like 7'7", something like that, like some crazy height. And then the 32-inch wheel bikes can fit riders down to 5'10". So I think if anyone was going to review one of these, it should probably be used that. Then we can get you on the very smallest of the smaller size bikes. You might just fit it.
Yeah, I imagine this would feel kind of like when I was younger and I, was way too small for like a 10 speed and I'd like run and jump on it. And, like getting off was like basically you would just jump off and hold the handlebars and hopefully not crash. Um, I do wonder like how big is the market for these things? And of course, like where do you get new wheels and tires and everything for these bikes? It's got to be kind of hard to find and probably very expensive, but you're probably used to it if you're, a 7-footer that things just don't fit. So glad that these things are around. It's kind of hilarious, like looking at the lead image. The guy, the people, the models in the image are quite tall, so these look like normal bikes. But then further down in the article, there's a normal sized person with a 29-inch bike. And you're like, oh, this is absurdly big. But
Yeah. And
again,
keep in mind that the 29 is considered a huge wheel. Like that's
right.
like your big mountain biking wheel. So, I mean, that's a large bike in comparison to these gigantic bikes.
And also, are these mullet bikes? Is it 36 in the front and back?
No, these are the same front and rear.
Okay, yeah. I think it's just a perspective thing on the lead image. The back tires are probably further back, so they look a little smaller.
Yeah, probably had to go a little wide angle to capture both of those massive bikes in in one frame. A
Yeah.
note on like tires and wheels though. So 32 and 36-inch wheels are technically standard. It's not like a custom wheel they had to have made, though 32 is a lot more standard than 36. Like you'll find more tire options in 32 than 36. I think 32 is kind of common in large unicycles for like a cross country unicycle or that sort of thing where people go long distances.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know what other use cases there are for 36. There probably are, 36-inch unicycles as well. It's not my like area of expertise. If it's yours, then chime in the comments. But they are both technically standard sizes, so it's not like you have to go back to Dirty Sixer to get those parts. But I do know that the founder, and I think that's him in the top picture, and also this one in red, if I'm not mistaken. He's like 6'6" himself, so he set out to build this company basically to serve people like himself that basically don't fit on normal size bikes. And they started with pedal bikes. They only went electric a couple of years ago, and so certainly it's not like a huge market in size. I mean, in quantity and physically, it is a huge person market, but I think that there just hasn't really been any option out there. So at least now there's one to fit all of these tall folks that never could comfortably ride a bike before.
Yeah. I mean, these people have to have bikes, so good on them for making them. Uh, Not a huge market though.
Yeah, and the fact that
Moving
Shaq
on.
and LeBron James like your bike,
Yeah,
it
they've got
doesn't
money,
hurt either.
so they can probably build some margin padding in there. Um, Moving on, Lime launches new electric bikes and scooters designed for women.
These are two new models that Lime has launched, and they're both, they said, designed with like women and shorter statured riders in mind. I think for many years now, Lime has been really trying to make their bikes more accessible to a wider audience. For I think since shared mobility has been a thing, it's been dominated by male riders, and a lot of companies have been trying to figure out how to open it up to get more female riders interested in using these products. And so both of these two new bikes, well, one is a bike and one is a seated scooter, are designed with women and shorter riders in mind. They both use 20-inch wheels. The glider, which is the scooter version, it doesn't actually have pedals. It's the one in more of the green colorway there. To me, is really interesting because it's basically the equivalent of like a Vespa style scooter, but in bike format. So it's not as heavy. It doesn't have the big front shield, that sort of thing. It looks and feels like a bike, with the exception of that it has foot like pads basically instead of pedals there. So you just hop on, you twist the throttle, and you go. Their new Lime bike is a similar setup in terms of the dimensions, the proportions, same 20-inch wheels, that sort of thing, but with traditional pedals. Both of them have throttles. So, if you're on the Lime bike, you don't actually have to be pedaling. You can use that throttle. And then the other major update that they announced were these big new baskets, which they described as being better for shopping, which seemed a little on the nose when they say that these bikes are designed for women, but that's their marketing department. But it is kind of cool to see them making these like more utility friendly. And to me, like a sort of like step through shorter bike is just like kind of a comfortable way to get around. You don't have to like hop up onto it. I'm not a particularly tall person myself. I'm only 5'7", so maybe I'm biased here. But I just like when things are, like shorter, squatter, easier to step through. That's like a more comfortable ride to me than climbing up on a big tall bike.
Yeah, it feels safer too. The lower you are, the lower your center of gravity. I was a little bit surprised at the throttle aspect. Here in Paris, there's no throttles on any of the e-bikes. Either Lime or Dot have. So I don't know that the throttleless version will make it here. And in fact, looking at these, it doesn't even, I guess this one has a pedal for sure, but that one picture kind of looked like they were pedalless. Like if you look at the green one down here, it's pretty much a scooter, right?
Yeah, I mean that one's basically the like equivalent of a Vespa scooter. It's like a seated scooter with the foot pads instead of pedals.
Right. So I don't know that these would like I don't know where these would fit in the micro mobility situation here. Clearly in the US, no one would have a problem with a throttle bike, I don't think. Um,
Yeah, I think
but
these are really designed for the North American market.
right. And they look great. Like I'm always curious, like if Lime is ever tempted to sell the bikes they make. I mean, obviously they're built to withstand a lot of usage, so they're built well, and these look pretty cool. The small ones in particular. So great to see. The bikes out here are pretty tired, pretty banged up, but they still work really well.
Yeah.
So nice to see some updated designs coming down the pike.
Yeah, the other thing is that, it seems like they have a pretty stretched wheelbase. Maybe it's a bit of an optical illusion because the wheels are 20 inches, so they're a bit smaller, but it looks almost like maybe not a long tail cargo bike, but kinda like a mid-tail cargo bike to
Yeah,
me, which just makes them kinda track better, and, makes them feel a little more stable to a lot of people. Not quite as nimble, but, you don't really think of these things as being like, little nimble pocket bikes. You wanna feel like you're on a stable while tracking vehicle. At first I wanted to say I was a little surprised they didn't put a rear rack on them, especially that the Lime bike with the pedals because it just looks like it's begging for a rear rack. But then as I was thinking that, I was like, well, if I had a rear rack on that, I'd definitely be like putting a passenger on the back. So that's probably why they decided not to put a rear rack on these things so that people don't try to ride them too up.
yeah. I mean, here I've seen people riding on the basically like the splash guard. Uh,
Yeah.
so it's definitely a problem. Uh, I mean, maybe the problem or maybe the solution is just making a seat back there and well, blessing it or whatever. I'm sure that's not quite as safe, and there's a whole host of issues like who's at fault if somebody gets hurt. Is it the driver? Is it the passenger? Um, so that gets complicated and probably more complicated than hey, let's just put a bench on the back and have a really sweet bike. The other thing that you mentioned, the bigger front cargo area, it certainly looks much bigger than the ones that are already pretty big on the current line bikes. But I think by having a smaller front wheel, it allows a much deeper cargo area, and obviously many women have purses, but also they mentioned the shopping aspect. There's a lot of good opportunities there, and especially since this doesn't have any rear rack and panniers, the bigger the front basket, the better. So it seems like a
Yeah.
smart design all around.
Yeah, like I would want one of these as like my just sort of like personal runaround, right? Like this would be kind of like a nice little urban scooter replacement. So I would definitely ride one of these.
Yeah, same. Maybe somebody at Lime, if you hear this, maybe a commercial version, sell it at Best Buy or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of Lime bikes, and we mentioned earlier Paris. You wrote last month about how Paris has a perfect solution for Olympic traffic, even if many people will hate it. It turns out that most of the people that hate it they have left Paris for the Olympics, and it's all just like glorious utopia here. Like I'm not saying that ironically or sarcastically. The city is amazing. I've lived here for over 2 years before, and you'd always hear like in the background the rumble of tons of two-stroke engines and just loud uh, vehicles, buses, and the city has totally changed. Because of the Olympics, a lot of streets have been closed off to most kind of traffic, but bikes are allowed almost everywhere. So there's this like kind of renaissance of you know quiet, nice travel being done. A lot of people on foot, a lot of people taking subways, RERs everywhere, and then getting off. And if they have to go a long way, then they get a Lime or a dot bike. So it just like sitting at a cafe right now is a totally different experience when it's few and far between the two-stroke engines you hear. It's a lot more electric bikes. Renault Zoes and Teslas are everywhere instead of the rattling diesel vehicles that in the streets that do allow cars right now. But it is just a micro mobility paradise, and I'm slacking for not having written about it, because it really, like, it's not just me. Everybody around here is like, wow, Paris is just a much better place to be now. And I hope, there's a lot of people from all over the world here. And I met some people from Los Angeles who should be taking notes. Like, hey, you can have a pretty great um, environment and people can still get around, and doesn't have to be loud, doesn't have to be stinky, doesn't have to be dangerous with cars trying to get up and down these small city streets. The solution that's there, just Paris spent a lot of time and effort, like, making sure that there was enough bikes, and they have these Velibs that are all over the place, and they have Lime and Dot bikes, and they did get rid of scooters, but it turns out you can go to a Fnac and pick up a scooter for $300. And if you're riding a scooter every day for 2 months, 2 weeks, you're probably going to get pretty close to breaking even on that. So, and then you have a scooter at the end of it. So there's just so many options, so many micromobility options that Paris has embraced, and I don't notice, like, the downsides. There just aren't any. Like, it's just all upside to me.
Have you noticed, like if there's a lot more shared micromobility, or if most people have their own private owned vehicles, or what's the ratio? It seems like.
So, as I said, the scooters, they got rid of all the shared scooters. So all the scooters you see are going to be, the Segways, or I do see a lot of those, like, what was that thing called that went like 80 miles per hour? I do see a lot of
The
big
Zandu
Chinese
thing?
scooters. Yeah, Zandu. I don't know if that's the brand, but I do see a lot of those things, and those things go fast and they go over curbs, and they're pretty burly. And I imagine people aren't carrying those up any stairs. They're probably parking in garages or something. So we do see a lot of those, but we also see the cheap $300 Segway scooters that people are just putting by at 15 kilometers per hour, which is fine. Like, that gets you where you need to go, and you can take them on the subway, on the metro. So I don't know. It just feels like Paris is dangerously close to, like, a perfect micromobility landscape. And my gosh, like, hopefully people are taking this experience back with them to wherever they're from, and saying them, to city planners, like, this is great. Like, this, low stress. It's not stinky. You don't smell the petrol fumes. You don't hear, like, the buzz in the background, or the two-stroke engines flying by ruining your cafe brunch. A lot of just all upside here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hopefully, you're right that people come to Paris, they see this, and they realize this is doable.
Yeah, I mean, it's so nice here that it's hard to imagine um, people aren't impressed with what they've built. Um, so good on Paris. And then our final story, uh, I or you tested the world's most affordable electric golf cart, the Kandi Mini.
Yeah, this one, I didn't know what to expect from this, but I was really pleasantly surprised. This is a very small golf cart. It's certainly more than a mobility scooter. It's not like a little rascal kind of thing. Um, I tried it with my dad. We could both fit in the front seat. I think it's really designed kind of for like one adult in the front and one in the rear. But you could fit, two people probably in the front, and then a couple kids on the rear, or definitely an adult and a kid in the front. So you can get more than two people on this, even though they usually show two people in the marketing. But it's a really fun little low cost golf cart. In the U.S., the golf cart market is surprisingly expensive. If you haven't looked recently, you might be shocked to see that like a basic golf cart can easily be $9,000 or $10,000. and the really nice ones with the sound systems and the lifted suspension, you can be looking at 12, 13, $15,000. So this is $3,500. Now it's a little more limited. Not only is it smaller, but it's slower. It only goes 9 miles an hour, which if you're trying to go somewhere on the road is quite frustrating, and borderline an issue depending on traffic levels. It's also technically not one of the street legal golf carts. It's not a low speed vehicle. But if you're in a community that's very golf cart friendly, like there's a lot of those in island communities. In Florida, you'll find them often places. There's a lot of places in Texas where you've got these golf cart communities or golf cart islands. Then a lot of those places, they don't really need to be technically low speed vehicles, the correct classification of street legal golf carts. And so for that kind of situation, this just seems like an ideal setup. And the one I tested had a roof and a windshield added. Those are both accessories, so they don't come with that. But you can add those on, and they make it a lot nicer, especially in that Florida sun. But all of the standard accessories, like here we're looking, it's got that flip down rear seat like a lot of golf carts have, so you can have like a utility bed in back. It's got DOT seat belts. And then the really cool thing about this model that I haven't seen anywhere else is that the wheelbase can actually collapse down. So there's a button that you push and it shrinks the wheelbase by like 10 or 12 inches. So if you were trying to fit this like, in a corner of your garage, or on like a little one of those tow hitch platforms, like you'd carry a motorcycle behind an SUV or an RV, you can do that as well and make it, like a really short, stubby golf cart for storage. You can see I was able to fit it into my family's minivan, which
That's
I've never
crazy.
heard of any golf cart that can fit inside of a minivan.
And
So,
it fit all the way in. You like lowered the seats and
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it was in there. I didn't even collapse it. Like that's in the expanded, like normal driving mode, but
right.
it could shrink up another, 12 inches to be even shorter if you needed it to.
What's the weight on it?
I think it's like 400 something, maybe 450 pounds.
Okay. And the
It's
batteries?
the battery's lithium iron phosphate. It's
Oh, nice.
1.8 kilowatt hours, I think. So they advertise 25 miles of range. I didn't actually go 25 miles because at 9 miles an hour, that's like, 2.5 hours of sitting there on that thing. But, based on how slowly the battery meter was dropping, it seems like it'll go every bit of that 25 miles. It's not like super high powered, but I like drove it down into ditches and it drove right back, up the other side kind of thing. It certainly worked fine off road. It's a little bit bouncy. It's got okay suspension. The front is like normal A-arm suspension. The rear is like a straight axle swing arm. So it's not like super sophisticated, but it's pretty good for riding around on, like sandy pasture grass like I was on. But taking it into the city, I took it to the store. I did curbside pickup at at Target. And it worked great as like a car alternative in a kind of community where golf carts are accepted. If golf carts are very foreign where you live, you might be looked at, a bit weird having a golf cart instead of a car. But I think it makes a great alternative. I don't know how well it would work on a golf course. I guess you could stick, golf bags on the back, but these days, maybe like 1 in 4 golf carts is actually used on a golf course. So I'm not sure that's going to be their main audience.
Yeah, I can definitely see this in retirement communities and college campuses and other places where golf carts are used today. And, maybe as a car for a 14-year-old or a car for somebody who lost their license for drinking or, those kind of things. Um, Important question here. Does it come in any other color besides red?
Yeah, I think it's like 4 or 5 colors. There's green, pink, and purple, which is interesting. They went with both of those colors. But the paint's actually really good. It's that metal flake paint, so it like sparkles in the sun. Like you'd think it would
Wow.
be kind of like cheapo paint if you're only paying $3,500 for a golf cart, but it's like automotive level paint. It's very strange.
Any like powertrain upgrades now or in the future? Obviously, 9 miles per hour is a little bit lower than a lot of people were hoping for or are hoping for. It seems like it wouldn't be too hard to upgrade this a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure like this would void your warranty, but swapping out the controller, I imagine, would be the easiest way to pull a little more power out of that motor. It's got, I mean, the motor, it's listed as 1,000 watts. These Chinese motors usually use continuous power rating, as opposed to in North America, we usually use peak power. So, it's pulling certainly more than 1,000 watts. I mean, driving me out of ditches, like you're not doing that with just 1,000 watts in a four-wheeler. So, you could probably do a controller swap and get a little more power out of it. But again, don't tell the company that I said that was okay.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a great package and a great price. So we'll probably hear more from that. Are you keeping yours? Are you gonna send it back
Oh,
or what?
yeah, so I'm hoping to keep it. I got big plans. I want to put a solar panel on the roof. Um, and I've been looking through Candy's catalog here. They have so
Mhm.
many interesting vehicles that I kind of want to see what else I can get my hands on to review, because they've got not just bigger golf carts, they've got go-karts, UTVs.
Nice.
They got some interesting stuff. So
And do they have
I'm
a North American office? I know they're obviously Chinese, but
Yeah, so technically this is Kandi America. I think they're
Mhm.
actually Taiwanese, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but this is their sort of U.S. operations called Candy America. They're based in Texas. I forget exactly where in Texas, but that's where they've got their headquarters. I think there's some sort of dealership out there, but I've been sort of like searching around on Google to see, who's actually gotten their hands on some of these things. Because as I look through their catalog, they've got a variety of different vehicles, but they're still pretty young. I know they're full size golf carts. They have them at like Lowe's and maybe what's the like the sporting goods stores. I can't remember if it was like Dick's or Bass Pro Shops or those kind of like sporting goods stores. There's a few that
right.
I think are starting to carry their golf carts. So I'm seeing more and more of them out there. But this is, yeah, it's from their like American branch, which is the Candy America.
Cool. Love to see it. Even if it is Chinese or Taiwanese, I think you need more of these kind of options, especially at the low prices here in the U.S. We do have some questions in the comments. You have a few minutes. If you want to give us a comment or a question, you can do it now while we jump on to what's already in there. Extra Hero says, "Do you know if the Electrek Expedition cargo bike has any competition in its price range?"
I mean, I think it's definitely one of the highest values. I believe it's at 13.99, if I'm not mistaken, like 1,400 bucks for a mid to long tail cargo bike. There are a couple low cost e-bike companies that are coming out with cargo bikes. None of them are released yet, so I can't say which ones, but I think it's going to start to see a little more competition. But it really is sort of like setting the bar for value there, I think. It's like
And what is a rad wagon going for these days?
I think it's 18.99, if I'm
Oh,
not
is that all the way?
mistaken.
At one point, it
Yeah.
was 15 or something like that, but I know that
So I
they've been
think that
creating.
was they still have the Radwagon 4, which is the previous model in stock, and that one I think you're right might actually be at like 1,500 right now. But the newer version, which is the Radwagon 5, I believe, is, I want to say like 18.99, something like $1,900.
Yeah, I mean, cargo bikes, they go way up in price. You get up to the recent Mueller, they're up around 10,000 bucks. So you get a
Yeah.
wide variety of options there. I think you like the Expedition, didn't you? Especially at its price point.
Oh yeah, I mean it's just so much value. Now it's, you can't compare it to some of the nicer cargo bikes out there, but for, an average Joe, like it's incredible. My sister and brother-in-law have one. They take their kids around on the back. Like it's just a really well thought out for the price e-bike.
Yeah, and the higher end ones that we really like, I think Turn is probably one of our favorites. They make the GSD, and those are way higher quality bikes, but also they're much more expensive, which Extra Hero isn't really asking, but
Right.
throw that in there anyway. And then a follow up question: is it better to have one large battery or dual smaller batteries?
I mean, I guess they both kind of have advantages and disadvantages. If it's a good quality battery, then one single larger battery just likely gives you fewer issues. For some of these like lower cost companies, you can have battery issues where these things just sometimes brick, and if that's the case, then having two leaves you with the ability to still go somewhere if one of them locks up. The other thing is a lot of people who use their bikes commercially, like couriers, like Uber Eats riders, that sort of thing. Having multiple smaller batteries is nice because you can swap them out, and then you don't have like one massive pack that makes the bike heavier or makes it harder to lug around. Especially if you're, like returning to some central area throughout the day, like a depot or something, you can just swap in batteries. But I generally prefer to have like just one nice big high quality battery, so I don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah, I guess it depends sometimes on how you're charging it. If you're taking a battery up some stairs, you probably want smaller, multiple smaller batteries versus one huge battery. And then, like for instance, swap stations, it's sometimes nice to have more than one battery in that case as well.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
I agree. Kind of depends on your use case. All right, that's all for the questions.
All right. Well, thank you guys, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you guys back here in another 2 weeks for the next episode of the Wheelie Podcast. See you next time, everyone.